Hi, I'm Samantha Detweiler here at Cabrini University talking to Dr. Hedtke about our executive orders. Hi, how are you doing today? So what are the parameters of an executive function?
Okay, well, the executive function's actually housed in the very first clause of Article 2, which is written in an ambiguous format. And it really says that executive power is vested in the President of the United States. So executive power and its parameters are almost anything the President says are his executive powers or her executive powers. And then that's defined and honed in and controlled really by Congress and then the courts.
How quickly can an executive order be put into place?
It can be put in place immediately. It can be made effective immediately. The only real thing that has to be done is it then has to be sent on to the federal register, and it will be published, I think, within 60 days.
What is the most unusual executive order that has been put into place?
I don't know. I'd check that. If I were you as an interviewer, I'd check that one out because I'm not quite sure, but I'm sure you'll find some interesting and funny ones. That's what I think of in terms of unusual. So, it could actually be that and I'd have to check this out, that the president commutes the sentence of the turkey that comes to the White House for Thanksgiving. I think that's done by executive order, but I'd have to check that in the Federal Register. But I think that might be where it's posted, and that would be pretty unusual if it was.
Okay. Which president has the most controversial executive order?
Oh, that's easy. The most controversial executive order was by Franklin Roosevelt. And right when World War II started, he issued Executive Order 9066. And what that did is it declared parts of the West to be two war zones from which any or all people could be excluded. And under this order, the military removed about 110,000 people of Japanese ancestry, most of them, about 70,000 of them, American citizens, and placed them in internment camps throughout the American West, from Utah to Arkansas to Texas. And this was appealed twice to the United States Supreme Court in Karamatsu versus the United States and Hirabachi versus the United States. And essentially the courts upheld this order. So it was obvious, it was the most controversial one. And in fact, it wasn't brought to any type of conclusion really to the Reagan administration when Reagan and the United States government gave reimbursement funds to people that had been held in these camps.
How permanent is the executive orders?
Well, it's permanent while the president's president or the courts do something. So in effect, President Obama, many of his executive orders have been reversed by President Trump. So they can last for a long period of time, they can last for a short period of time, but they're generally reversed either by the courts, an action of Congress, or the president that comes in after the president who issued that order.
Oh, so the president in a new term can come in and say, like, okay, this executive order is done, like, it's none.
Exactly.
Okay. How is it different than the legislative Congress?
An executive order has the force of law, and the president can really put forth an executive order under three circumstances: under his constitutional powers, under direct requirement to carry in laws of Congress, and also to execute treaties and other international agreements. So it has the same force of law that any law passed by Congress would have. Congressional law, however, has a little more permanence because it's generally harder to overturn.
Can an executive order be ruled unconstitutional?
Absolutely. The most famous executive order that was ruled unconstitutional was an order by President Truman to nationalize the steel mills during the Korean War. And that was overturned by the United States Supreme Court. Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company versus Sawyer is the actual case.
How would this come about?
It'd be ruled unconstitutional because something in the order would have violated one of the clauses in the United States Constitution. Or it might also have violated a law that was made in accordance with the United States Constitution. And that's pretty much what happened to Harry Truman. There was, what the courts ruled in the instance with Truman was there was a law already in place that he could have used to prevent a strike rather than seizing the steel mills.
So how does an executive order get dismantled?
It would cease and desist as the rule of the country, so you could no longer carry it. So it would carry on with it. It would just cease and desist. So as you've seen with the recent executive order banning immigration from 7 different countries in the Middle East, once the United States District Court in Washington State said that this ban didn't meet constitutional muster, in effect, Homeland Security had to stop enforcing it.
Oh. So you said that the executive order is just a law, right?
It has the force of law. It has the force of law.
Okay. And then why would a president enact an order that he cannot enforce?
Okay, a president would enact an order he can't enforce, at least in the case of the current president, to meet his campaign requirements, the campaign statements, his campaign promises. Mm-hmm. So President Trump said, hey, we're going to ban Muslims from coming into this country, and he banned Muslims from 7 different countries. Mm-hmm. Now, right now, as of today, he doesn't have the ability to enforce it because he's been restrained by a district court and by a United States Court of Appeals. But he can tell the American people, I kept my promise. Mm-hmm. It's the courts that really took the law into their own hands. He's asked an executive order to build the wall to keep Mexico out, to wall Mexico in. He can't do anything about that wall unless he can pay for it. Congress pays for it. But he can tell the American people, hey, I created an executive order for that wall. It's Congress that messed it up, not me.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add, important or anything?
Yeah, just keep your eye on the executive orders of the current president. See how many are made to keep campaign promises. See how many can actually bear fruit under constitutional muster, and then really hold the president accountable for those orders.
Thank you for your time. I'm Samantha, here talking to Dr. Hedtke about executive orders. Now back to our hosts.